the last time I had Jason on the show, when we did break down MVP on this show and have mid-season, right around there, we talked about Jaden Ivey very briefly. And Jaden Ivey is one of Jason's favorite young players across the league. If I remember correctly, you loved Jaden Ivey last year in the draft, right?
Yeah, he was. When I watched him at Summer League and dove into his film, he was one of the guys. I had him as my second favorite prospect in last year's draft behind Paolo.
Interesting. So, okay. So you are an anti-Chet establishment person is what's
Can we watch him play some NBA basketball, man?
So I wanted to talk specifically about Jaden Ivey, but then also this Jalen Williams breakout is happening in front of us. And I really want to dive into Jalen Williams because I find him entirely fascinating. And then I told Jason, pick a couple of other guys and we'll dive into them as well. So we're going to do that on today's show. We're going to dive into everything, at least 5 players that will become breakout players and future all-stars in the NBA, in our opinions, or in one of ours opinion. And we'll try and sway the other one on that take. Well, let's start with the impetus of this, right? Let's start with Jaden Ivey. So when I evaluated Jaden Ivey, I had him in the same tier as Paulo, as Jabari Smith, as Chet Holmgren. I loved him. I thought he was like a legit future all-star if everything broke right. The thing that worried me is that at Purdue, he is a guy that did not get a lot of ball screen reps, particularly. It's just not a part of their offense. And I swear to God, Jason, I got frightened by how much I loved Jalen Suggs and his lack of refinement in ball screens at Gonzaga. Despite the fact Gonzaga runs a ton of ball screens, he also had a lack of refinement in terms of footwork. I saw similar lacking refinement in Jaden Ivey, and I thought it would be a bit of a struggle early on. It was a bit of a struggle early on. It's not a struggle now.
No.
What have you seen from Jaden Ivey over the course of this season that has impressed you in a substantial way?
So he obviously still has a long way to go. There are some fundamental things that I think he needs to tweak a little bit. Like his jump shot release is a little too low for me. It's more of a set shot type of form, which I think really bothers him in contested shot situations. Like he's actually lights out on wide open threes this year. He's shooting 68% effective field goal percentage on unguarded catch and shoot jump shots, according to Synergy. But that falls off of a cliff in any sort of contested situation because it's too low. He's struggling to finish around the rim. Those sorts of things I think are more decision-making based than is athleticism based. It's, to me, rim decisions are what determine rim finishing percentage almost just as much as your touch around the rim and things along those lines. But what I really like is I think he seems to fundamentally understand the purpose of the pick and roll. So many players approach the pick and roll as like this play finishing move. And I look at it more as the play that can get the defense into rotation. And what I've liked with Jaden, and this is something that can only come with reps, and you can only focus this way when you're getting, that game the other night against Charlotte, he had like 20 pick and roll reps in that game. Like when you have the wherewithal and the bandwidth of reps to make mistakes and to feel the flow of the game, you can do a thing where maybe you come off that ball screen and you have an opportunity to go downhill, but there's a guy digging down from the wing and you've got a player on you can just make a simple swing pass. And then that guy can attack the closeout, start the wheel that ends to the final shot. And, he's ticked up his points per possession on pick and roll up to almost a point when it was down almost 2/3 of a point earlier in the season. And what impresses me the most about it is he's playing a lot with some bad basketball players right now. Like he actually has like a little bit of a lob chemistry with James Wiseman that I really like already, but he's surrounded by a lot of non-shooters. Like a lot of his turnovers and blocked shots in pick and roll are more congestion related, which I think will go away when he's playing with better players. But you can tell he's like, this is a lights out downhill speed guy that has a lot of power behind his game that is approaching the pick and roll with a methodical, slow, patient approach. He's good at putting guys in jail when they go over the top. He's patiently settling into his pull-up when they go underneath the screen. This is just a guy who's figuring it out on the fly, and the talent stuff will come. Can't make a floater yet. That's going to be something he's got to figure out. Has to make better rim decisions. Has to polish up the pull-up jump shot. But the strength and the athleticism and that patience is what's standing out to me early on.
Yeah, and it's been over the last 2 months, particularly that patience. Like, he is so much more comfortable just sitting in the mid-range and being patient in the mid-range once he gets that advantage. Jaden Ivey's first step is so good that out of a ball screen, he's going to be able to get that advantage immediately whenever he wants. But early on, I felt like it's exactly what you said. It's that rim decision. I watched a clip from, it was probably like their 10th game or something this year. They played the Knicks, and he took a ball screen going to the left, and Isaiah Hartenstein was in drop. And it was just a situation. It was perfectly inclined for him to stop, survey for a second, look to his left. He had a wide open kick out to Bojan Bogdanovic. And instead, he just ran into a brick wall at the rim, right? It's just like, okay, Isaiah Hartenstein is going to block you every time. He's an enormous German, just wall at the basket. And that is the kind of stuff where you look at the progression throughout the year. I think he's improved more in that regard, just the comfort level of being patient within the mid-range area, than I've seen a rookie guard improve in a long, long time. He has gotten so much better. And with that, he's now able to actually manipulate defenders. He's doing like a skip step instead of just driving to the basket. He's doing like an inside out dribble to try and just string out a ball or a drop defender, maybe toward the right. That tends to be what he does. He tends to inside out toward the right because his favorite mid-range shot tends to be the elbow jumper from the right side. He's pretty good at that shot. And what you see over the course of his last 15 games, he's tripled his mid-range volume in terms of shooting over that time. And he's making like 55% of them or something like that, like a crazy number. It's because he's getting to his spots more comfortably. He feels a little bit more polished being able to get to those areas. And then, like you said, once you're able to go fast to slow to fast again out of ball screens, that's where the ability to separate happens. And that's where you can truly take advantage of your athletic tools. Jaden Ivey's coming, man. It's going to be sick, I think.
He's been leaving the 3-pointer short a lot. And what's interesting is I think he goes to that mid-range shot with a little bit more lift and a little bit more kind of like game speed verve. Whereas when he takes his 3-point shot off the dribble, like he's kind of slowing himself down too much and shooting more of that like set shot. I think that's part of why he's succeeding more in that like mid-range area of the floor. But the other thing that I noticed is he's getting, and this is the kind of thing that, again, you would only figure out with reps, because if you were getting 3 pick and rolls a game, you would be looking at each pick and roll like, I need to get a shot here, or I need to throw the lob for the dunk. But he's much more patient because he knows he's going to get another crack at it. He's paying attention to tendencies. There's a specific thing that he's been doing a lot, I'm sure you've noticed, where it's like a high hesitation crossover, like 2 or 3 times to get the defender to start engaging with the screen, even if he's going under or over, and kind of get him to stick on one side before he picks a direction. It's kind of like setting his man up, which I think is one of the most vitally important parts in pick and roll, because if you just go the same way every single time and the defender can prep to jump the screen with you, it's not going to be as effective. It's just, again, like, you know, Detroit's, I was listening to some of the broadcasts, watching some footage, and they're like, we're trying to find out if Jaden Ivey can play if he can play point guard. And I've always been a little bit less concerned about having a true point guard and more concerned about like the complementary nature of having a initiator that's more of a guy who looks to set people up, and an initiator that's more of a guy who can kind of create his own shot. And the way I look at it is like, he's kind of turning into that former, like he's turning into that guy that is setting people up well. And to me, that is enough, as long as he continues to get better at it over the years, to be a foundational primary initiator. It doesn't need to be Chris Paul, you know, like it just needs to be a guy that can consistently generate quality shots in pick and roll, and then also remain a threat when he's off the ball. To me, it's the modern game is less rigid than that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and especially when you're going to be playing next to Cade Cunningham in all likelihood.
Exactly.
And Cade is like an absolute supercomputer coming off of any sort of advantage situation. They're going to work perfectly in synergy, in my opinion, because you're going to have Cade bring the ball down the court. He's going to take a ball screen. He's going to find the open man. And then you're going to have Jaden bring the ball down the court at times. And then Jaden's going to get into the middle of the court, reverse to that second side where Cade's going to have opportunities. And when Cade gets that early advantage, again, he's just so fast processing the game that I think it's going to be really, really impressive from a synergistic perspective on the way those two are going to work together. And in large part, I think it's because of these reps Jaden Ivey is now getting without Cade Cunningham to be able to develop these skills night after night after night. Okay. The next guy that I just want to bring up here, and I need to talk about Jalen Williams for the Oklahoma City Thunder, J-Dub from Santa Clara. I think he is like, awesome. I think he is a future star. No, like over the last 15 games, Jalen Williams is averaging 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 57% from the field, 47 from 3, and like 86 from the line. And you watch him, and it's like all translatable. Everything he does is off of 2 feet. It's on balance. He has this enormous physical frame, 6'6", 7'2" wingspan, great center of gravity that's lower to the ground than most of these guys that have the elite level length that he has. It's impossible to knock him off of his line. It's impossible to like really disrupt him out of ball screens, out of isolation drives. I think his first step is faster than what I saw at Santa Clara. Everything that Jalen Williams is doing right now, I'm like, this is the best run we've seen from any rookie so far this season. Like I don't even think it's really all that close. I think he's been unbelievable recently.